Okay, so on our breakfast soapbox rant today, we decided we'd talk about a subject matter that's kind of come up, mainly because it's in our videos and people have expressed some situations they've had, and it's about witnesses and pets and service animals and their general attitude or lack of tolerance for such it's rather an unloving lack of understanding that they have regarding the subject matter. But I think some background is probably in order there. Both Tiffany and I come from abusive backgrounds, but since this is about her, we're not going to go into all of it, but she can summarize that.
Mm-hmm. Both of my parents are not witnesses, and I grew up, like I said, or like he said, with some abuse as a child. And when I was almost 10, 11, I don't even remember how old I was, the state got involved, and they were going to put me in foster care, but my aunt and uncle stepped in, and they are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they said to my mom, please let her come stay with us. And so my mom, as she had said to me, I pretty much gave you up. And so she gave me to them. And since then, or as a child, I've always had problems with anxiety and insecurities. I've been to counseling several times growing up, different periods of my life. But it's looked down on as witnesses. And for good reason, sometimes they'll give advice that it just does not...
doesn't jive with the scriptures, and they'll give you advice sometimes. If you're having marital problems, they may tell you, well, leave your husband, as opposed to trying to work it out. So it just depends on, obviously, the counselor, but sometimes that can be the case. So fast forward, and we're married and pioneering and living in North Dakota, and the fact of the matter is they just discourage children. It's not the time to have children, as one elder told us. Never mind that he has to himself, but I suppose they were unplanned, and that can happen. But the idea is to pioneer now and to have children in the new world, which is all fine and good. But how much are you pushing someone in that regard? Another elder said, I'll let Tiffany share these experiences, but go ahead.
I remember the situation pretty clearly. I was getting a drink of water at the hall, and the elder kind of smacked me with a watchtower and said, if you ever get pregnant, I'll never speak to you again. And I made some comment like a shepherd beating the sheep, because he beat you with a watchtower kind of thing. And I kind of walked out of the hall, welled up with tears. It really hurt. It stabbed bad, and it still hurts. It still hurts.
And you could say, well, that was a one-time thing and joking. And as a matter of fact, he apologized in our judicial committee meeting and said, well, I just meant it as a joke.
Our appeal meeting, I think it was, yeah.
But the reality is that if it's a joke or not, what's the general attitude you have? And Tiffany, go ahead with the second thing.
Yeah, same elder. I had a friend that had just had a baby, and there was a few families growing rapidly in our congregation, and this elder said, there's enough calving going on around here.
So that's
loud enough for many people to hear it.
Yeah, so that's kind of the social dynamic that we're in. And you combine that with Tiffany's background of abuse and anxiety and panic attack issues. That's sort of what we're in. The funny thing is that, not every witness would find themselves in such a situation where people are going to be saying that you may be in the same hall and never hear those comments aimed at you at all or said to you. So it's funny how one witness could have an absolutely different viewpoint than another witness just because of all the things that are being relentlessly driven on them.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say in particular that I felt especially singled out. These are just a couple of comments, but I had several comments said to me like that, and I just felt singled out.
So again, combine that background of abuse with what's going on, having some anxiety and panic attacks, and so she gets a service dog. Mm-hmm. This seems like a pretty easy fix as far as that's concerned. Mm-hmm. So Tiffany ends up getting a service dog, but she never pushed the issue. And you can talk about why that is.
I just wasn't going to use loofah as an excuse. I didn't want to break up. I didn't want to cause problems, and I just wanted to keep the peace because I felt like I was having conflicting things said to me. I had brought Lufa into the hall, and
at the behest of this elder's sister. If these two,
and that's what I'm going to get to.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to talk about the dynamics of this couple.
Yeah. So it's an elder who's single, always been single, never been married, and his sister who's very close in age, and she's married to a worldly guy. So if you were at the hall over and over again, didn't know the situation, you'd think they were married.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's their parents that sort of started the hall, so they kind of think they own it anyways. So that's the dynamics here. So at the behest of this one sister, because Tiffany has had her dog with her all the time, but she's not pushing the issue about it being a service dog. She says, well, you can bring your dog in because it's warm outside or it's cold outside
if it was
or whatever.
Cold. And I want to say because I loved her so much, if she was... if it was super cold, I mean, we live in North Dakota. It gets 30 below, 40 below here. If it's that cold outside, she's probably going to be staying home. It's 0 degrees. She's staying home. I'm not bringing her with me to the hall. And same way if in the middle of summer when it's 90 degrees out, I'm not going to bring her and have her sit in the car because it's too hot or it's too cold. So there was a few times where I'd bring her and she would be in the car waiting for us. And I'd check on her, halftime during the meeting or whatever, and this sister had said, just bring her in with you because it's too hot or it's too cold, or that's animal abuse, or she'd say some snarky comment about it. And then this elder would say, you don't bring her in here on another occasion, she can't be in here. And so I was like, you know what, just keep the peace. I just don't want to create problems or waves. She's for me, but I just don't want to cause a problem.
And again, this isn't just a pet.
No.
It's a service animal. Like, we didn't make a big issue of it. Didn't bring her into restaurants or things like that. But she didn't need to at the time. It was enough to have her near her most of the time, and to have that. And if she had a panic attack or something, usually the dog was there. If she was having a special issue or something, well, then she'd. And it's different from an ESA, and it's a big deal now. An ESA versus a service dog. An ESA, emotional support. Well, I want to bring my dog on the plane with me for my companionship, versus PTSD dog. My little dyslexia kicking in there. PTSD dog that's able to recognize that and intervene in the attack, or to calm the person during an anxiety attack or something like that.
Yeah. And maybe it just goes without saying, but Lufa and I had such a fantastic bond. She knew by the expression of my face, the way I was acting, any kind of behavioral
Very
change.
Attentive.
She knew, and she was right up in my face to comfort me, or to give me to distract me, or to calm me down, or to stop a panic attack from happening, or something on those lines. She was really good about noticing, I guess, what her service really was.
And if you've never had to deal with panic attacks or anxiety attacks, I'm telling you, it ain't.
You don't
pretty.
want to.
Yeah, I've had to deal with it once, and for me, it was like, and everybody explains it a little bit differently. For me, it was like a dark hood coming up over the top of me, and I had to fight it back. It was heavy on my shoulders and whatever else, and had to constantly just fight it back in order to keep that anxiety attack at bay.
Yeah.
So anyways, never pushed the issue and whatever else, trying to keep the peace. The sister's saying, bring her in. The elder's saying, no, don't bring her in. And then when she doesn't bring her in, the other sister says, well, that's animal abuse to leave them out in the car. So.
And there were some meetings where, especially towards the end of the situation, where it was starting to get more abusive and worse, I could not handle being in a meeting because I was more often getting these panic attacks, more often getting more just anxiety in general. And so I would sit maybe through the talk, if I could make it through the talk, and then I'd leave and I'd go sit in the car with my little baby, Lufa, because I just needed her. I needed her, and I couldn't bring her in, and I didn't want to create problems, and so I'll just vacate. And, sometimes I'd have to walk the town with my little baby dog, and
while we're in meetings, she'd go in.
I'd just leave during the meeting and I'd walk.
There was a walking trail right next to the hall that you could go on.
Yeah.
But go back a little bit. So she's got this dog, and we're pioneering.
Yeah.
And so here are your foregoing children for the kingdom, and again, which is that's all fine and good. but she's got this little dog as a coping mechanism for both her past and the current dynamics. And so part of pioneering is you go to pioneer school. And if you know anything about witnesses, it's not like you just opt out of it. I mean, you probably could, but it definitely wouldn't be pretty as far as how it would be looked on.
Mm-hmm. So and I want to say
social dynamics.
Yeah, and I want to say this is the first time we went to Pioneer School. We've gone twice, so this is the first time we've gone.
So we go to Pioneer School, and she's got this little dog that she's got to take with, and somebody else's. They say, well, you can just leave her with at home or leave her with somebody else. And Tiffany's like, no, that's not how you don't understand.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not the way it works. And so this brother was kind enough. He stands up and he says, you know what, but nobody in the pioneer list supposedly had someone that could accommodate a dog while we were in school. And this brother steps up and he says, yeah, you guys can stay with me. I've got we have no problem with watching your dog. And brothers found out about it and annexed that, stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. There's other people that are signed up for that. And
this is not the arrangement.
That's not the arrangement. So those people had to back off. But they said, we can watch your dog for you. Well, that's not going to work either. No. That doesn't fill the need that's there. So anyway, our neighbors across the street, Catholic, nice people.
We love them. We love their whole family. Their whole family's from our area, our county.
We don't believe the same thing as them, but we get along with them great.
Yep.
They have a house. They happen to live a house where we're at, and then a house where they're having the Pioneer School, which is down in Fargo. And they said, well, why don't you just stay at our house down there? And so here we are. This has got to be unheard of. Here we are, pioneering and staying at a worldly person's house.
During Pioneer School.
And
this is when Pioneer School was 2 weeks long, not just a week like it is condensed now.
So we'd go home and to their place and share with them what we learned that day or what we discussed that day. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'd say. I don't like to say learned. Not that you don't learn things, but now that's such a played word that they use. We need to learn from Jehovah, which means those men. But no, when we're reading the scriptures, we're learning from Jehovah, and that's true. But a lot of the things, after you've been in it a long time, you're not really learning anything new. They become reminders. Mm-hmm. Not that we can't learn something new, but it's not like the publication is going to teach you something new. I usually get more learning out of people's comments, and that's what I loved about Pioneer School. Some person said to me, he says, oh, all the studying in Pioneer School. I said, if that's the way you study, you need to learn what studying is, because covering that much information is not studying. That's just what it is. It's just glazing information. That's it. So you really need to change your study habits if that's what you think study is. There was so much information. Okay. Of course, they changed it, downsized it to 1 week, and then changed the format. But what I always appreciated, that you're dealing with other spiritual people that are there. It's the commenting, somebody else's perspective, their insight on the scripture. Maybe they did some extra studying to see about the circumstance, or maybe they did to see other circumstances about.
She's just jumping around down here.
Come here. And you notice this dog is absolutely dead quiet. You won't hear a peep out of her.
This is
even though she's all playful and whatever else.
Okay. She wants to run and play.
So anyway, so we go through that whole Pioneer School, staying with this worldly family. It's just, again, unheard of dynamics. So the next situation with animals, go ahead.
So we were announced in November. We were announced disfellowshipped in November. And
we'll get into that whole story.
We'll talk about that. Well, I'll talk about that, in another video. So we were announced November 20th, and on the 23rd, Lufa passed away. She was attacked by another dog. I'm not going to go into the details about it. It's such a tragedy, and my heart is still broken. So just the same week of dealing with that, I'm trying to keep my...
It was very tough to handle. So then she had to get another service dog because, again, this isn't just a pet. So we find Swiffer.
So we have a video of when we went and got Swiffer. We went to Wisconsin and we got her the following weekend. It was I think it was 8 days after Lufa had died. She died on a Friday. We went and got her that next weekend. And given the scenario of being freshly disfellowshipped, and now I'm really dealing with full-blown anxiety, panic attacks, and now I don't have her. And oh my God, it was the worst week ever. So Swiffer naturally is going with me all the time.
And now she's got to train a new service dog.
And now I have to train a new service dog. So she's going with me everywhere. I'm trying to train her for me and my needs and what I need her service to do and what she needs to do.
Because she's not like a seeing eye dog. A seeing eye dog,
right.
They pretty much can be taught by anyone to see obstacles. Exactly. Granted, they're going to get a bond with the owner, but I think there's even a story in the Watchtower where an individual became a witness because his dog happened to continue come to the hall, and when it got the new owner, it just happened to lead it back to the hall, and that person supposedly became a witness. That's how the story goes. Anyways, I think we heard that at an assembly or convention or something like that. I heard that. But that's an interesting point about that, given the next story Tiffany's going to tell about this.
So we had a trip in December. We were gone for a couple weeks, so we weren't around to make the meetings. But we got back. We started coming back to the meetings, and we were going to a different congregation. Because
we weren't going to go to the one that disfellowshipped us. We were trying to work out some problems there with those brothers, and they just refused to acknowledge they were doing anything remotely wrong. Whatever do you mean?
Yeah.
Please.
So I was bringing Swiffer, and I would say I'm just going to sit in the back library. And she was just like around, I want to say, 5 months old. So she's still a baby. She's sleeping a lot. And I was starting to get used to her little routine or whatever. We were in a routine. So she'd sleep during the whole meeting.
And she doesn't make a peep. Even when she's fidgety like right now, you won't hear her make a peep.
Yeah. So she was, but the point was that when we were at the hall, she was sleeping. It was later in the evening. She was sleeping during the whole meeting. And I think by the third or fourth meeting, I had brought her because we were sitting in the back.
And the elders were kind of give us the eye.
Yeah, they're like, what's the deal with this? You're bringing this dog in. And of course, we're disfellowshipped, so nobody's saying anything to us. And finally, two of the elders approached me as we
were leaving.
As I was walking out of the hall, and they said, why are you bringing this dog in here? Or why do you have a dog? Or, they questioned me about her. And I just said, well, she's a service animal. And one of them, and then Chad came up, and I don't remember what you said. You said something like...
They asked about having papers. I said, she's got papers.
Yeah, she does have papers. And...
I don't even think they asked that because they're not allowed to. They're pretty good about...
They did say, does she have paperwork? Or they did ask about,
right.
You have to have paperwork. You can't just claim any dog as a service dog.
Yeah, but I think I just volunteered that perhaps. I said, yes, she has papers.
Yeah, so... I was really ticked off because I thought...
They said, we'll have to do research on that, was the bottom line.
And what that means is they're going to go to the branch, they're going to call the branch and say, what do we do with this situation?
So they text me back later that week and say...
the following week.
You're not able to bring the dog to the hall,
You have to make other arrangements.
We can't have that liability.
She's 3 pounds. She's never made a sound. She sleeps. So it was just an excuse. And I called my doctor, and I was like, what do you think about this? And I told her the situation, and she said, well, they are just making an excuse.
And I get, I don't like the fact that religion is able to skirt the service animal laws. Mm-hmm. I get that, now it's gotten kind of crazy about service animals. Sometimes you can have a service animal that's a pig, for goodness sakes. Well, obviously, that's an unclean animal to Jews and to, Muslims. So you wouldn't want to have a pig in there. But if the dog or if the animal is not specifically causing a nuisance, because even in a restaurant, if the dog causes a nuisance, by law, they can ask you to leave, even if it's a service animal. Yep. So if she gets too fidgety or whatever else, but that's part of the training process too. She's
8 months, just about 8 months. Well, almost 8 months now.
Yeah. So I guess that's the interesting dynamic of how unloving and inconsiderate they can be of a person that's going through a situation. So here they don't want you necessarily to be on medication, though they say, well, you can go ahead and, there are certain situations where you can be on meds. But if you can avoid the medication, that's a pretty easy fix compared to being on a litany of Prozac and
benzos and all kinds of drugs.
Whatever drugs they're going to put you on, which can screw you up even more. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. And as far as pets go, we've seen some interesting situations. I had a CO said, well, if you've got your animal in your bed, that's too far. You're taking it too far. It's like, who are you to judge? I mean, who? It's just crazy. So that's sort of our stories with that.
Yeah, and so to conclude that little part of that is that was the last meeting I've been to. I think maybe I've been to one more. I think I went to one more meeting after that, but I was so upset. I didn't even sit through the whole meeting. I left early. I can't tolerate the Pharisaic attitude. I just can't tolerate the Pharisaic attitude.
Yeah.
Making rules when, yeah.
So, what do you think of that, Swiffer? What do you think of that story? It blows my mind. I got fireworks coming out my ears. It blows my mind. Swiffer says, like and subscribe and click the notification bell because she won't notify you. She's too quiet.